all good things come to an end, and that includes careers. So when you're a leader, sooner or later, you will probably retire or decide to do something else. And as soon as leaders leave, you have to talk about leadership succession. So how can you make it happen that this goes smoothly? Because most likely, many people who listen to this podcast heard of, well, let's say a leader leaving the organization, and the transition to the next one, the segue, hasn't been too smooth. And when we talk about the planning, how to put it in place, how to sustainably secure that it's actually successful to have the next leader in place, we unfortunately see many organizations not talking about this early enough. The change of generation, the generational transition from one to the other, is happening right now. Many of the boomer generations already have retired or left the working market for one reason or the other. In about 10 years' time, there will be no one left of them except probably self-employed people who have a completely different way of working anyway. And the difficulties of now finding new leaders are omnipresent. This ubiquitous situation in all organizations caused numerous problems, and often you have a situation where people try to find someone new and then they fail miserably. The question is how to do it better, and that is what we are going to talk about today. Of course, the main factor is planning, planning, planning. Best case is you plan multiple years ahead. However, when you now listen to this and say, well, it's a bit late for that, what can we do right now? There is, of course, an option when you say you didn't actually, let's say, plan ahead for this. You probably went with situations where people told you that they hope to find someone. Hope is not a good plan for you. Or they tell you, oh, we have leaders, but when they retire, we just call them back in. They get consultancy contracts and they always show up one time or the other. And then we just ask them for help. That is not a sustainable concept as well, because most likely either in their private life or their personal attitude, they will sooner or later not be available. Worst case, due to health reasons, of course, and I wish no one to have that situation. But sometimes even in private life, they say, look, my partner just said, after 40 years of work, now it's time for private life. Could you please stop contacting me? Or they, by themselves, say, I am simply fed up with it. I am done. I don't want to have any more consultancy contracts. Thank you. No, thank you. What to do then? And of course, the better situation is when you plan ahead. The first aspect you have to take care of is the profile. You have to look into what kind of divisions, business units do you already have, which expertise is needed for these divisions to lead them or for the whole organization, what experience is needed. And then you have to decide very early, do you want an internal person or an external person to be the successor on this position? The main aspect here is you have to look into the working profile, the work profile of the person you have right now, and then very early and very quickly decide, is this still a modern, up-to-date, contemporary profile? I give you a situation which happened in a project which I help with, and they had someone who was very well respected, was in the company for more than 30 years, but at a certain age said, I am going to retire right now because now I want to do something else than just working. And they looked into the work profile, and this person loved the company they worked for. They were pretty much available 24/7. The usual 60-hour working week was normal to them. And even during vacation or when they are absent for other reasons, they were always available, at least for a phone call or for emails or whatever else. And then they were looking for someone who did exactly that. And they tried two people who both left reasonably quickly because these people said, look, we have certain rules in the world of work, and when you expect me during my paid vacation, where I have a right to time off, to be available at the phone basically within 60 minutes of every call, calling you back, going through my emails, going through project plans, purchasing and sales, probably a bit of marketing add-on as a bonus during night hours, that's not what I want to do. The other person before loved that. However, the situation which you are changed. Many people, including that person, and by the way, including myself, entered the working market where it was common to say you have to work hard and to work a lot. So you get selected by the organization to not only be there, get a working contract, but also to sustain and stay there in due course of any kind of changes. While today, the situation, well, we can simply say tables turn. Today, you as an organization have to be very attractive and tell people why actually should they choose you. And by the way, if you think this is going to change, it is not going to change. I know that many people now say, oh, with AI, it's going to be all better. Look, we had a global pandemic, not changing it. Many organizations thought with a global pandemic, we finally can pick people again and the tables turn back to where they were in the 80s and 90s, probably even 70s. No, That is not going to happen. Even with AI, you need very specialized experts who do the jobs that you plan to do and want to have done in your organization. So you have to show what is your work profile and how do you fulfill the expectations of applicants. I give you an example of a very large tech company in Germany. There was one very senior manager who worked long hours, and he loved to do that. And this tech company, which is a stock exchange listed global IT company, decided that when this person is going to leave the organization, and that person left for retirement more than 10 years ahead of the usual retirement age because they made the money and they said, I have enough. Now I have private plans. Thank you and goodbye. They announced that 2 years ahead, to be fair. However, they decided that they get 2 younger people on this position who can be developed into the seniority in the next couple of years. However, it is still a bit more expensive to have these 2 people instead of that one very senior and, of course, quite high salaried executive. Still, having 2 people very clearly sent the sign that they expect that the, let's say, perception of working hours and the role of work in life changes significantly. And that is a very honest, very modern, and basically a science-based approach, a fact-based, science-based approach. That is the way to go. So step number 1 is you look at the profile. Step number 2, the organization. With which departments is this person you're going to replace or have a successor for? With which department is this going to work with? And which people work in these departments? What actually are the different points of contact where probably someone may or may not cause a conflict? So as soon as you have any kind of intersection, any kind of gateway in between different points, any kind of interface, any kind of connection, you have to talk about with whom do they work and why, and what is the approach of work here? And of course, you have to look into, are there any kind of supportive functions available? So either can the department support, or can other departments support, can HR support, or whoever else? Is there anyone available who is able to help you with giving a smooth transition from one leader to the other, that this continuous cooperation keeps on flowing instead of having a massive interruption and then basically restarting? What you need for that is a development program. No matter if you have an internal person or an external person, especially when you have people who have very little or no leadership experience, or leadership experience from a very different organization or a very different industry, you need to develop them into the situation you are. And what I unfortunately very often hear is they say, oh, we do it with training on the job. And the training on the job ends up being, oh, you can contact me anytime. My door is always open for you. By the way, door open doesn't mean that I am there. I'm also very busy. I don't really have time for you. Basically, it means good luck from here. And we hope that you just stay and figure it out somehow by yourself. And rightfully so, many people leave such organizations very quickly. So you have to look into how do you actually make a development program happen internally and externally, because no development program means no success in the succession from one person to another. So that's the second step, the organizational aspect. The third aspect is how to put it in place, how to implement it. So first, you can only have a way with the people, not against them. I give you a very simple example from my working life. When I started to work for GlaxoSmithKline, a pharmaceutical company, they very early said, you can have a career inside the organization. However, we at least choose, and that is the information I got, and that was the end of the 90s, so maybe it's different today. They told us every second leadership position will be set or given to someone who's not from GlaxoSmithKline. When we have a position available on a leadership level, every second person, 50%, will be given to external people. And of course, I asked why. And they said because they don't want to become blind within their own organization, only stick to their principle, only stick to their ideas. They want to have external innovation. And when you look into pharmaceutical industries, that is a very smart decision. When you ask, for example, how to do a product launch in pharmaceuticals, you can ask 10 product managers and will get 10 completely different versions of how to do a product launch. So having different inputs from different organizations is a smart choice to do. However, the most important aspect here is you have to justify the decision. It is not that you tell them, oh, we like to have external people because that's what management says. That's what the executives prefer. That's our culture. Didn't you know? Surprise, surprise, here we are. That is not a justification. You have to give justification if you like it or not. Never say it's political. Never say it's traditional. Never say it is. The decision is done. There is no point to talk about that. You must justify at a very early point. When you then choose a person, you need to choose someone who is socially and formally legitimized with your people. If the person is only formally legitimized, meaning they are probably very well educated and they have the knowledge, but they are socially not accepted with anyone, then they will not succeed. If you have someone who is socially accepted but isn't up to the job due to a lack of formal knowledge, then they will not succeed either. They will, with both situations I just described, you will fail one way or the other way. So you need someone who is formally and socially legitimized, which again calls for a development program, which is definitely needed. When you look into the personality of that person, always choose someone who says, first, I learn. Second, I implement what I learned. Third, I'm going to optimize. Never hire someone on a position who says, oh, we need some change, or I'm going to make a mark here and show them my true colors, or someone who says, with a new brush, you can clean very well, or any kind of that there are many idioms out there where people just say, I am here and I have to show that I am here. This is ego-led leadership. Never hire any of these people. Also, by the way, science-based. If you look into science and people can only make themselves seen or heard by making drastical decision and changing things for the change's sake, these are the people who not only fail the hardest, but also the most frequent. So be sure that you have someone who first learns, then implements what they learn, and then optimize, not in any other way. Very important here, fact rule. Your insider deals, nepotism, cronyism, personal context, personal preferences, or any kind of inherited place from, oh, we always had that family on this position, do not matter. If you only stick to inherited situations, inherited jobs, or you have some sort of insider deals, nepotism, cronyism going on, where people basically say there is no fair game in here, people will never accept any successor on that position. You will create a very high level of employee turnover. I give you a positive example from a company which is based in the new energy sector. A leader there who decided to retire 3 years early compared to what the usual retirement age is, announced that 3 years early and said, I'm going to help the new leader. Then they had an internal and an external decision where they decided to choose someone internally, a 3-year-long development program, because the leader at the very beginning said, when I retire, which means I'm not available for phone calls, consultancy gigs, or anything. So we need someone in place who's actually able to do the job within these 3 years. And people always thought he's joking. And of course, he will be there, etc., etc. And at the beginning of 2023, he said, this is the final year. 1st of January 2024, the new CEO will be in place. And by the way, on January 1st, he's going on a very, very long trip with his wife, visiting many places, sometimes together with his children, sometimes on their own. And many of these places do not even have internet or signal. And he says, I'm not going to be available, as I told you 3 years ago. Many people still were very surprised. However, having this planned 3 years in advance with an honest announcement, an honest selection, and a way together with the people, including an intensive development program for 3 years, is a sign that there is a chance for having successful succession in leadership. And now it's up to you to implement exactly the same in your organization. And of course, there's more. If you now say, hey, Niels, I have 28 questions about this, feel free to contact me. nb@nb-networks.com is my email address. I will also put this in the show notes of this podcast. You'll also find my LinkedIn there. Feel free to connect there. I still receive people asking me, do I have to follow you or can I properly connect? Please connect properly. I'm also always happy to receive feedback on this podcast. Feel free to contact me on anything. And feel free to contact me if you have any kind of remarks, questions, anything you'd like to talk about, and then we take it from there. When you, of course, have something very specific, you need someone for training, speaking, coaching, whatever, contact me as well. Always happy to help. Second aspect, which I always recommend, is register for the leadership letter, because we have live sessions. They are available in English and German, in the English and German language. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, I also put this link in the show notes of this podcast. You can register there, and then you can have live sessions, being in contact with me, asking anything you like. We have a live session once per month. And then with this live session, you can always be sure to ask anything you like live with me online. And the third aspect, which I always recommend, is apply. As you see, this is the most important one. Apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change that you want to have in your organization. I wish you all the best doing so. Let me know if you need any help. Always happy to help you in any way. And then I wish you a great week. And at the end of this podcast, there is only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.